Hello and welcome to Walk and Talk. The date on the alien calendar is DR 31221142. And that means the date on the Gregorian calendar is Tuesday, November 9th, 2021. I would like to talk about how the rise of serialized cartoons and lore affected my life and the way I presented myself online and in my sketchbooks. So, if you listen to a couple of my walk and talks, you notice that it's all deeply into the lore of my life, and it's usually deep, dark secrets masked thinly by lingo that I made up. And the lingo was recent. That wasn't always there, but I've been doing that sort of thing for a while. If you look back and the original Mess of Comedies, the Mess of Comedy clips, those are just silly clips where I'm just saying something silly. Or I'm just, acting out a crazy character for a few seconds and then cutting to probably 12-year-old me in a room doing something really wacky as a segue between the cartoons, even though they're not actually cartoons. They're effects. But and then if you look at my sketches, sure, I was serious. I was serious, and I went and I created inventions in my sketchbook, but I didn't present those to the public. And I really didn't go into detail about what the actual problems in my life were. I just sort of worked on them without addressing what they were. Let me show you an example. So this is when I made up the solar cube. There are electronics in here, but it doesn't really explain why I was making up a solar cube or what was my main idea of, being drawing inventions. Is basically my dad being independent, trying to create things so I didn't have to depend on other people for the dark reason. And you can see some drawings here I made of a hand holding a pencil. I was drawing that. I was drawing this hand holding a pencil because I wanted to make a painting of my grandmother's ghost coming to me, but there's no evidence of that directly. I have my alter egos. They're not particularly described. I didn't write the lore of those, which was that my parents told me to come up with alter egos, basically, and that described my behavior as sovereign things within my mind. And I just sort of I just sort of went into like the darker elements in middle school around the time that the that cartoons were getting serialized and starting to show this lore. I made comic books about Mr. Stupid and Albert Schminkenheimer, and I did have sort of a extended universe, but it was all for a silly purpose. Like, there was no overarching narrative. It was just, Mr. Stupid. They're just like little Easter eggs, like the Xanatarians created the Uggans, and the Uggans fight Albert Schminkenheimer. It wasn't until around when I was 15 that I started working on Cole Winters stories, which were sort of overarching stories about how, or actually they weren't overarching stories, but they were deep, sort of dark stories that combine the inventions and the comedy. And the story was usually about an inventor who would it was about an inventor who would found the nation of Anlia, or Belugada, which was my main thing throughout, and originally it was about reuniting the Belugadechians, or the Belugadalians, who were Belugadalians from the future who had come to the present, or actually come to more soon future. I forget. The nearer future. They had come to the nearer future to, and they had been there throughout human history, and they were looking to Cole Winters to reunite them with the humans. And then eventually it turned into this whole, overarching story that took many generations for it to be, for the characters to get through the full circle of the universe, and the character who created Anlia was me. That was let me see if I can bring that up. See, this is the overarching narrative. This is Mr. Stupid, the original comic. This is the sequel to Mr. Stupid, which was very deep in the overarching narrative, made in 2015. This is the accomplice to the... This is a story about the accomplice to me, named Sean Schoen, who's an Uggan. This is the original comic of Albert Schminkenheimer, made in middle school. It's hilarious. This is the 2014. Well, for the record, when I was 15, that was 2011. So this is 2014 when I was 18. This is a story that was supposed to encompass it all, but ended up just encompassing the character at the very end. And I think these fell off of that one. Just reading that. these are still kind of funny. As you can see, the deeper things are done with more detail or entirely in text. But you know, this really makes me want to think, like, what if I made Walk and Talk into a seemingly innocent thing that had a lot of lore? That would, you see, the difference between me and the other cartoons is simply I moved into this lore territory without anyone watching me. And therefore all the new stuff is the lore. And people are starting with the lore. Personally, I love starting with the lore. I love watching videos about lore of different things that I've never seen, and then maybe deciding to watch the actual things if the lore is good enough. But I'm questioning whether what appeals to me is what appeals to other people. I'm thinking it often is not the case that what appeals to me is what appeals to other people. And though I really love the idea of just finding people who like the same things that I like and appealing to them because I'm appealing to myself, I don't think I'm going to find those people. See you in the future, Future Down.